So today we also have some of our school children who are watching too. So they might be wondering, as you are probably wondering, and whenever we come to this scripture reading, why are we reading this? I mean, it is a really awesome place if you want to search for a name for a new baby. Sometimes whenever my brothers or sister-in-laws say, hey, we're going to have a baby, I'm like, hey, check out the genealogy of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. There's some great names here. There's Zerubbabel. Wouldn't that be an awesome name? Or Achim. You're like, bless you. Or, I mean, there's some really, really wild ones here. There's some great ones. But anyway, what's the whole point of this genealogy? Well, the people of Israel had a great love for numbers, numerology they call it, and genealogy, knowing the family line. And what's amazing about this genealogy is that it shows that it's written in truth, and it's written in a real authenticity. Many other stories about heroes of the past, you usually don't speak about their, when you're in the ancient world, speaking about Caesar, or speaking about Hercules, or speaking about Achilles, or different people like that. You usually, if you're on their side, you want to tell everything good and leave out anything that's bad. But here we have Jesus Christ, the one who is the good. And yet his family tree has a mix of saints and sinners within it. What we just saw here, and for the people who would know the Old Testament, is we just went through an entire course on the Old Testament. We went from, in this case, we went from Abraham, who we hear about in the book of Genesis, all the way to Joseph, the foster father of Jesus. That's why we also see here that it says, it goes all the way through this family line, and it gets to Joseph, but then it says that Joseph, the husband of Mary, and it says, of her was born Jesus. Which means that we know that Jesus' father was his father in heaven. But when Joseph is called to name Jesus, if you remember, Joseph receives an angel in a dream saying, don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife. She will bear a son, and you, Joseph, shall name him Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. And when a person has the right to name a child, it means more than just saying, well, here's a nice name. It means, I now take responsibility to be like a father. And so Joseph, in a very real way, by naming Jesus, takes Jesus under his family tree, and truly becomes Jesus, the son of David. But what we also see here, like I said before, is that there's messiness in the family tree of Jesus. I won't necessarily go through all of it right now. Some of it is extremely scandalous. Some of it is very evil, what many of these people did. Things that would make your blood curdle. And yet, God chooses to come to us, to save the messiness of humanity by actually coming into a messy family tree, to heal humanity from the inside out. And what he's saying here is he's saying, I'm not afraid of the scary closet within your own heart, within your own family, within your own people. You know, we have that expression, the skeletons in the closet. Well, there's lots of them in here. And if you look through the Old Testament and just find out who these people were, there's some really spooky people. There's some skeletons in the closet. And yet Jesus is like, I'm not afraid of that. because I came to heal those closets. You don't have to keep them shut anymore to say, God, you wouldn't like me if you really saw what was in here. The Lord's like, try me. I went into one of the craziest family lines, and I can certainly come into your family line, which I'm sure doesn't look like this. So welcome him in to your heart, to the areas in which the closets are closed because there's trash there. There's moldy food there. There's spooky stuff there. Things that you would think that God, because he's so perfect and so holy, would think less of us if he really saw that part. The Lord proves it to us by saying, I came into those closets, not to condemn, but to save. Another thing that is interesting about this passage is I mentioned about the numerology. So with us, when we think of numbers, we think of 1, 2, 3, 4. They look different than letters. Your ABCs, so any of our kindergartners who are watching right now, ABCs look different than 1, 2, 3s. In this language, which is Hebrew, they look the same. So when you have a letter, it also represents a number. And it would be a number within the alphabet. So let's say the letter D. So if we go A, B, C, D, we have 4. I sound like the count. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 for the letter D. So if you see the letter D, then it could mean the letter 4 at the same time. Now there's another letter, it's called Vav, it's the 10th letter. So they have letters in their alphabet that are different than ours, just like we have letters in our alphabet that are not always the same in Hebrew. That is 10, so you add those two together, and you get, let's see. No, actually that's 6. Sorry, I got my Hebrew letters wrong. So you have a 4, you have this one called Vav, which looks like this. It's kind of like a V sound. And then you have, let's say if we added another D, you would have 4 plus 6 plus 4. 14 generations. It says the total number of generations from Abraham to David is 14 generations. From David to the Babylonian exile, 14 generations. From the Babylonian exile to Christ, 14 generations. So if you were to take those letters together, it's hard to see it right now. I wish I had, like Sesame Street, to have like a sign to come up and say the number or the letter is D or whatever. But if you put a D, you put a V, and you put a D together, and let's say that you add vowels, because in Hebrew, they don't put their vowels in there. It's hard for us to even think of. But think of like my name without vowels would be N, D, Y. So what about David? D, A, V, I, D. 4 plus 6 plus 4. 14 generations. So when we see this number 14 generations here, the people of Israel would see 14 generations, but they would also see the name David. And they would see it, there are 3 times you see 14, 14, 14, because there's these chunks. 14, 14, 14, if you count all those names up, and it's David, David, David. Now remember in the Bible, when you say things 3 times, that means attention, attention. It's like good, greater, greatest. What Matthew in the Gospel is saying is pay attention. Remember, he's writing to people who are waiting for the Messiah, the one who would be the son of David, who would come and would be able to bring them an everlasting kingdom. And St. Matthew is saying, this guy, Jesus Christ, is the son of David. And he's the son of David that came through a messy line, that he came to bring peace to your family and to my family.